Hello, everyone. I am so excited today. And thank you guys for joining us to the I'm Just Saying podcast or the IJS podcast with Tanya. Today, it is very, very, very special for me to have Meagan Mitchell. She is a clinician, a therapist, a social worker. She is a girl from Southwest Chicago. She has planted her feet in these Tampa sand, and she's going to be talking to us today about mental health. And as many of you know, I'm very open about my journey with mental health. So for me, this is so important. This is a big conversation, and we're going to talk about it. So I had to wear my big hair today. This is big, y'all, because I think for so long, like a lot of people, I kind of didn't understand mental health. And so we have Meagan who is going to break it down. And guys, I want y'all to, we're going to be very transparent in this conversation. So thank you very much to everybody for joining us. And thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me and that wonderful introduction. I couldn't even done that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Mental health, guys. What I think we want to start off with, and I'm gonna be honest with you, what's mental health? Because there are so many times I hear people say mental health and it's just a buzzword. And I think sometimes, and I don't want people to kill me in the comments, don't come for me, but sometimes I always wonder if it's being overused in society. So I would really love for you to talk about what is mental health.
Yes, and that is a really good point. And it is being used more often, which is good. It helps with, I think, the stigma that surrounds it. As we are talking about it more, it does help to use the word more. However, I agree with you. Sometimes it gets maybe overused as a buzzword. So I think what it comes down to is, I like to use the word now mental wellness. Like, how are we feeling, in regards to how we view our day to day? How are we processing our day to day? Are we in control of our thoughts? Are we in control of our feelings of anxiety, depression, stress? So it can mean a lot of different things, but I think overall, how are we taking care of ourselves mentally?
Absolutely. I love what you just said. Wellness. And I think now, girl, you just gave me a new word to use because mental wellness sounds so much, it's better in regards to like on my own journey. And today I'm going to talk a lot about my own journey, which I think a lot of people navigate, can relate, especially from a business standpoint, because in business, whenever someone says to me, well, how did you do all of this in 6 years? And I say, oh gosh, I hit rock bottom mentally. And then I started on this journey. Can you kind of break down for me, what was I experiencing? Because there's a lot of friends that I have right now in this, I like to call it this seasoned stage of life where we're getting ready to do the business, but mentally we are not in a good place. Why is that happening to us?
Sure. And if you can elaborate too a little bit more on at what point did you start to feel that? And that will give me a little bit more direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. It just came a point where I started to look at my life and I'm being honest, it was like F these kids and F this or F that. And I needed to feel more than a mom. I needed to feel more than a wife. I felt like my identity was tied to who I cared for as opposed to who am I? And if I die tomorrow, I don't want them talking about she was just a good mom and a wife and that's it. So for me, it's like, what am I? What am I? I want more. I want to feel something. So that's kind of where I think a lot of women are right now.
Yes. And that is such a good point. As women, we do wear so many hats because we go through so many different phases of life. And it's very easy to lose who we are as an individual. And so it's interesting that you bring that up because, also being in a phase of life where, our kids start to get older. So our sense of, as a mother, this starts to, shift as well. Also, sometimes we identify ourselves by our career, and sometimes that shifts as well, right, as we become a mom. So when you feel like you're being pulled in different directions and you lose that sense of who you are as an individual, that's where we can feel that stir of, stress and anxiety in the sense of who am I? Who am I?
Absolutely.
And so it's great that this is what has evolved out of that phase of just who am I? And that you have made this whole, I'm going to say empire, because you have quite a few different, assisted
Yes.
living facilities.
Mhm.
And if that's what has came out of this, it's a beautiful thing. So as women, we go through that, which is, some people find it unhealthy, but it is healthy because then we start to redefine who we are.
Wow.
Mhm.
What happens to the women that they can't get a healthy balance? Because I
Sure.
have some friends right now that are just feeling stuck,
Yeah.
and I want to help them. I want to help the woman that's right now that's just stuck,
Yeah.
and she doesn't have that thing that I had
Yeah.
to say, okay, it's almost like I thrive in chaos.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's a good thing to thrive in
Mhm.
chaos, because
Mhm.
I think now it's sometimes it's overwhelming,
Mhm.
but she doesn't thrive in chaos.
Mhm.
Her personality is a lot different. What do
Sure.
we say to women right now that are feeling so stuck in their
Mhm.
life that they want to
Mhm.
pursue this business, but
Sure.
right now they're just stuck?
Sure. Having a great friend like yourself that really sees that they are going through this to
Mhm.
feel validated that, yes, you are going through a phase that you are stuck.
Mhm.
I'm here for you. Remind her that she has you, building that support system. Who's going to be in your corner to encourage you to take that next step? But really just, taking a step back and breaking it down.
Mhm.
When you do feel like you're stuck, it's like, okay, what's holding me back? And I'm old school, so I like to write things down. And so what I try to do is too, it's like we take a piece of paper and we take a pen, and it's like, what are our goals for, say, the next month?
Okay.
And how do we break that down? And how can I support you as a friend to get to that goal? And I think just really taking a few days and really just focusing in on that and see if that helps just break down the walls and try to help identify with her,
Okay.
what is it that you want to do? Really, figure out like who you are as a person, what gets you up each day, what is
Okay.
your passion, and really trying to help her feel encouraged that there is something for her.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
So to all my women, okay, because we're giving y'all a little bit of therapy, okay? This is a little bit of therapy. Y'all, all you gotta do is hit subscribe or just watch it, and then you're gonna get it. Start each day by writing down what
Mhm.
is it, or tell your girlfriend, say,
Mhm.
hey, you know what? Write down exactly what it looks like. And I did that.
Mhm.
And that wasn't something that it was that I thought to do for therapy reasons. I just really wanted to write down, like, what do I want?
Yes.
And that's kind of what started this journey for me, because it is very, very hard to build while you heal.
Mhm.
And I think that that is something that a lot of us try to do. We want to build while we're healing. And
Yes.
for a lot of people, we don't have the tools. I grew up in South St. Pete. I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the ghetto. And
Mhm.
baby, where I come from, all they're going to tell you is to go to church and pray.
Mhm.
Until I had a whole anxiety attack while the preacher was preaching. He was like, pass around the plate. And I was just like, my fingers tingling. I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in what do you say when people just kind of don't know? Like for me, like, okay, you start going through this mental thing. And for me, the
Mhm.
mental thing was showing up as I'm driving, and now for whatever reason,
Mhm.
I used to go across the Howard Franklin Bridge every day, every weekend.
Mhm.
Now my fingers are tingling, my heart is racing, and I didn't know what was happening.
Mhm.
So, and it was nothing was going on wrong. I thought
Right.
everything was right.
Yeah.
So when do you know that
Yeah.
you're having like this mental,
Yeah.
when you need mental wellness?
Yeah.
When do you know?
Yeah. That's a good question to ask because a lot of the times it's first knowing that you need some type of support, some type of
Mhm.
assistance. And I think it sounds like for you, it was the physical symptoms that
Ooh.
started appearing that didn't make sense, right? And so if something doesn't feel right, speak up.
Mhm.
Who is that one friend that you trust? Be like, I'm not feeling right. Is this something I should seek help for? If not a friend, a family member, if not a doctor, like who is it that you trust that you can just say, hey, I'm experiencing this. What do you think I should do?
Okay.
There's plenty of free resources, texting, calling that you can call and, do an assessment to see, is this something that I need assistance with? But in your case, absolutely, like those physical symptoms that
Oof.
came out of nowhere that didn't make sense,
At all.
that was your red flag. And that could have been years of just suppressing that and just pulling it up by the bootstraps and, going on with life. And I think that's also generational. I think how we were brought up, right? Like this was just, the way of life, and you just keep moving forward. No fault of our parents, but that's just how it was. And so this could have been many years that something was going on and you just didn't realize it.
I didn't.
And think, now as a society, we're doing better because we have the understanding, we have the knowledge, we have the research, so that we're able to intervene earlier than after years of trying to deal with it. So I think if you have a friend in that situation, encourage her, support her to reach out to a professional to help work through these things. And, as a friend, I always offer too, I will go with you to the appointment. I will drive you to the appointment. We'll go for lunch afterwards,
Oh, I
try
love
to
that.
be like supportive, like a girl's day out, but we're going to go see a counselor, or a doctor.
Little girl, we're gonna have some wine and then we're gonna whine.
Yes.
We're gonna have some wine and we're gonna whine.
Yes.
So I love that you're saying that generational piece,
Mhm.
because for me, I think, and I love my grandmother, everybody knows that,
Yeah.
but generational, I
Mhm.
saw her. I remember when my mom died and she told me to stop crying.
Mm.
And for me, I remember I'm 16 years old and she's like, okay, baby, you got to stop crying
Mhm.
and you got to get up. You got to keep going. And I think, and I look back now, and a lot of culturally,
Mhm.
a lot of Black
Mhm.
women,
Mhm.
we are told, suck it up. And we are told in that moment, I don't think my grandmother knew what she was really doing by
Mhm.
telling me not to cry. Okay,
Mhm.
think about this. This is so traumatic. My mom passed away. We came home from school and and I'm even in that moment, my grandmother is still thinking, I have to be strong, because that's all she knew to do was to be strong and to keep going. And so how do we break those chains? Because I think that now we're talking about mental health a lot.
Right.
What should my grandmother have said to me in that moment from a clinical standpoint? What
Yeah.
do you think she should have said to me?
Yeah. And I would never tell grandma to do anything because we respect our grandmas, right? So we tell her nothing. But even if you're a parent today
Okay.
or a grandparent today, and it's hard because again, it's all,
Yes.
what you learned while you were growing up and how you coped with different situations.
Yes.
And today, what I would have said to the grandchild, just let it out. Just let it
It's
out.
okay.
Whether it's crying, anger, frustration, however that is. If you don't get it out, it just builds up. It builds up. It builds up. And then this can manifest in something dangerous, unhealthy later down in life.
Yeah,
So
and it
dealing with
does.
it. Mhm.
It hurts me and it helps me in business
Yes.
because I've had this approach of I just keep going. And when the people that are on my team, I have one person, she's very emotional, and I find myself going, hey, we can't have that in business.
Yeah.
So is there a place for emotions? Do you think that you can be emotional and can be successful in business? Because I always find myself going, okay, no, I don't want to, let's not be emotional. We got to get the job
Yeah.
done. And I
Yeah.
think it stems from my grandmother telling me, hey, Tanya, don't cry. So in a business, do you think it's healthy to be vulnerable in business?
Yes, and that's a great point as well, because especially as women, and running a business, we're told that if we show emotion, that is weakness.
Yes.
And as women, we're emotional. And so that can be looked at as we're not strong enough to lead a business, lead a team,
Yes.
right? So it is hard, right, as a woman then to consciously think of, am I being emotional? Am I letting my emotions get in the way of making these executive decisions
Yes.
moving forward with a team? So I think to keep in check for yourself when approaching a situation in a business, and the same for myself, if you have time to reflect and be like going into a meeting, I like to process things before I go into a situation so that I can remove any type of emotion from that experience so that I can think clearly and be decisive in going into some type of meeting, phone call, whatever that might be. So that it is healthy to have emotion. However, is it going to get in the way of, making important decisions, leading a team, having a supervision with an employee, and then leave the time after to process it so that you are still able to have the emotion that might be attached to it, but it's not getting in the way of being
Yes.
productive.
Okay. Because
That helps.
that does help. That does help. Because I love what you said when you said it's okay to be emotional and you don't have to just try to suppress all the emotions.
Right.
Because then sometimes I think I don't lead my team in a healthy way by telling them to pull back the emotion. So I like that you said that. That's okay. And just try to check it before I walk into the door, maybe go sit with myself for a few minutes and do those things. I want to kind of pivot to as women and starting businesses and doing all of these things. When I look back, I don't think I don't know how I got here. I just be thinking some vodka and God. But when I look back at the journey that I've been on and not having the tools and still somehow getting right here, what do you say to finding the balance? Because I'm kind of vocal. My husband's going to kill me for this, but in the process, I think I suffer. A lot of relationships suffer in this process. My relationship with my husband suffered. And we're trying to figure that out and do all those things. But how do you keep the marriage, the friendships, the family, and still be a badass? Like I won't be a badass, but I want to keep my man while I'm doing it. So how do I juggle all of that? Why is it so hard for women?
It is, and there is such a societal pressure, and we're told as women, you can have it all. You can have the family, you can have the man, you can have your business, but is that reality?
No, girl.
You may be able to have it all, but is it all good?
What cost?
What is that is going to sacrifice in order for me to be a baddie? What am I sacrificing in my other places of life in order for me to succeed, whether it is as a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a businesswoman, an athlete, a friend, right? Something does sacrifice. And I think having a supportive husband, right? And to help keep that in check, and you for him as well. If you're both working, you have to be even more intentional of how we spend our time on the daily, right? And so, for instance, my husband and I, we do a check-in every week. Like, here's our schedule. Where can we leave time for a date night? Where can we leave time? Every night we check in. What's tomorrow look like? So it gets busy, right? It is much more difficult when you have a business and children, and something does sacrifice. But having someone that can check in with you and be like, this is starting to, not do well. How can we get it back on track? And so intentionally leaving check-ins with your spouse, with your friends, setting that one dinner a month with your friends just so you can see them, so it's being very intentional with your time. And going to your comment about not having the tools, to the contrary, you did get through all that adversity somehow. What did you do? What kind of tools did you gain going through that, not knowing what to do? You fall back on that, even though you don't realize it specifically. Like, you didn't have breath work back in the 90s, right? You didn't have meditation.
No.
So what were those tools that you had back then? And that's what you fall back on. Now, whether they were the great tools, but they were something that got you to the point where you are today in building these businesses.
I think for me, and I don't know if other people do this, and I don't know if this is healthy, but every time it gets rough, what I tend to do is reflect on my childhood. I know that, and I don't know if this is right, but I will think about the day that my mom died, and I would hear the screams of my brother. I can still hear them, and I carry that trauma, but I always go back to this 700 square foot house with 7 people living in it, not having food, not having a place to sleep. I never had my own room until I was like in my 20s. So for me, I start thinking about that really hard some days when I don't want to get up. And I close my eyes and I'm back in that moment. And I just go, I got to get up. And for me, that helps me get up. And I always wonder, is that healthy for me to do that? I think it keeps me humble. It keeps me always thinking that things can leave at any moment,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps me relatable. But
Yeah.
is that healthy that I draw strength from my trauma?
Mm-hmm. You know, because of the trauma that it was,
Mhm.
and that it was trauma, that is, very natural to use that as a driving force. You have to ask yourself, is this, the only way that I know how to get myself up in the morning? And that's also a sign of like, am I healed from that trauma? If we keep reflecting back on the daily, then there's still part of you that might need, to be focused on and healed. And that's okay. What your experience was significant trauma. As you were a child, you can remember in detail and vividly what happened. However, if you use that as a coping tool to get through it, that's very typical as well.
Oh, wow. So I'm a little normal. I thought I was crazy.
You are not crazy.
I'm probably definitely going to be booking you after this because I'm going to need some help. As you can see, I need this. And I need this episode because I think that for women in general, but specifically for Black women, we are told that if we say things, if you look at all the disparities across the board, whether it's healthcare, wherever, we're always at the bottom. When I started on my journey, and my husband can attest to this, that I went to the hospital, not probably, over 100 visits. And they just kept telling me like, oh, you'll be okay. Or it's just this, or it's just that. I just kept being dismissed because you come in already with these doctors who, from a cultural standpoint, they just got some book stuff. They just look at you like, okay, here go another angry Black woman. Just go to bed and take some Xanax. And I'm like, no, I don't want medication. I need to figure this out. So why is there such this disparity with Black women? Why is it like that? Why is, if my girlfriend, she walks in, they're gonna do everything to try to get to the root of her issues. But when I walk in, I'm already behind the 8 ball with them, the preconceived notions that, oh gosh, here we go again, and they even have a term for it. And so why is it? Why do we experience this? Why is my pain or my anxiety or my mental health not the same as your mental health?
Yeah. And just like you had said, like a preconceived notion that this is something that's just how they've always done it or how they always dealt with it. And I think, women such as yourself on a platform like this, where you can advocate more and advocate for Black women's health and mental health, I think gaining more knowledge that in the cultural aspect, right? Like this is a very real thing, and that we need more resources and that we need more education and research on the matter. Because with knowledge, there's power, and with knowledge, there's understanding.
Absolutely.
So whether it's in the healthcare field or educational system or whatever that might be, having advocates like yourself that speak up and say we need, more women that work, Black women that work in psychiatry or counseling or mental health or, even in nursing facilities, right? The nurses that work with the patients, speaking up more on their experiences, their education in the matter is very important. Absolutely. And it is true in the realm of mental health, there are a lot of cultures that do not reach out for therapy services because of the idea that we don't speak about these things outside of our family, outside of our culture. Sometimes mental health is still looked at as a weakness. And, so I think there's a lot of cultural barriers yet in the field of mental health. And so I think trying to get past that. And then what I tell a lot of clients who they're on the fence about counseling, if they are from a culture where we don't speak about it, or we speak about it with our family or our pastor or, whoever that might be, the nice thing about therapy is that it's private, right? Yes. We have HIPAA. We have, you're able to reach out. You do have to have an emergency contact, but for the most part, it is private. And you don't have to make a public announcement that you are going to counseling or that you're seeking, professional help. So I try to encourage clients, think about it. Here's some information about it. know that, this is a private matter so that you're able to come and speak to a counselor and still be protected by HIPAA.
Absolutely. And I think for me, I've always said, my grandmother told me once, she said, speak your truth, whether you fill the room or whether you empty it. And so for me, I always hear that. And that's why my mouth works against me a lot, but girl, it works for me.
Me too.
If you ask my husband, he'd be like, your mouth, your mouth. But for me, I think that I have a duty. I don't want people, period, to get into these businesses and not understand the hardship, not understand that, y'all, listen, this was hard for me opening all these facilities, but there was something about I wasn't done. I needed more. I wanted, I wanted for people, there's this thing that I think if you don't have a college degree, for me, I didn't have a college degree. So I always felt at times that some people had an edge over me. And I would walk in spaces and I knew I was the smartest person in this room, but the paper didn't say I was the smartest person in the room. I'm working in corporations and like, why is this man a CEO? He can't even tie his shoe. So I had this thing that I wanted, I had something to prove, and I wanted to prove it to society. I wanted to prove it to women that success doesn't have to look like a doctorate degree.
Yes.
I wanted people to know that success could look like a girl from the hood making it. And that was so important. And, if you talk to my 21-year-old, she's just like, Mom, I go through it opposite. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, because I don't have a survivor story or a hardship story. When I tell people that I grew up with everything I wanted and more, she says, sometimes I'm in rooms where I have to shrink. And I'm like, what? Why would anybody make fun of you for growing up? Girl, tell them your mama got a whole lot of crazy to pass around. And luckily I didn't pass it around to you. But why is that now? It's shifted. That if you don't have a story of survival, then people look at you like less. It's the weirdest thing. And I want you to just kind of tap on that. Because I never knew that was a thing until my daughter told me that.
Yeah. And it is interesting kind of seeing, that shift. And I think it comes down to work ethic. I think we're really zeroing in more on how society is ran, where are the jobs coming from? And, I think people are really measured on now work ethic. Kind of we're shifting from, a time, like you said, where you had to pull it up from the bootstraps. And then I think we made a huge 180 shift where then we were not, encouraging our kids to walk through adversity and a lot of helicoptering,
Is that bad though, Meagan? Is that bad?
No.
Because I think if my girls spent a few weekends in the hood, this breakup won't have me driving all the way to Tallahassee to help you. So I think, we got to talk about this for 1 second.
Okay.
Are we making it so easy for our children, and we're trying to not have them feel any pain, that we're doing them a disservice? Because my kids ain't built for nothing. And I'm just like, did I do something wrong?
No.
Should I have, instead of going to see Mickey Mouse, should I have been taking my kids to the hood and letting them just say, hey, look, this is how it really goes down. So did I do something wrong? Because sometimes I think that we're raising these children to not have the strength that when the tough time come, for me, I never thought about no mental health. I was trying to eat. I never thought about but nowadays you have kids that they can be, I remember my daughter having friends that were like, she's like, oh, Mom, she was spending the night. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, oh, we got to go back to her house. She forgot something. And I was like, well, Paige, whatever she forgot, we'll just give it to her. And she's like, she needs her meds. I was like, I have Tylenol. She's like, no, Mom, she takes like mental health meds. I'm like, you're in middle school. What's happening? Meagan, talk about this. Because I'm going to have to see you afterwards.
Well, a few things.
That was a lot.
No, it's a good question. And, it's never too late to go to the hood and take a field trip. So I think it's good.
Drop them off.
Drop them off. And my husband and I talk about this too. We want to give our kids experience too, where they can also see how the rest of the world lives, not only to, be grateful, but just have a good understanding. And I think, from our upbringings, I think what we have done, and no fault of our own, but I think because we wanted to give our kids a different experience than maybe we had growing up, right? And sometimes it's hard to balance, like, how much do you give them versus allowing them to also have to earn it. And so I don't think it's ever too late to, walk with your kids and work through different situations where they have to walk through adversity. And so it's very difficult as parents to really see your kid walk through something and get hurt, whether that's physically or emotionally, but, walk through difficult situations. And so no, you didn't do anything wrong.
I don't have to drop them off in the middle of the hood and say, girl, figure it out. Call me.
Figure it out. But because of our upbringings, I think we wanted to provide them with opportunities that maybe we didn't have growing up, or to help protect them from maybe experiencing something that we did, so they wouldn't feel or experience that same type of pain. So sometimes we can overcompromise and take over a little bit too much.
I do too much.
However, we also live in a day and age as parents where we do have to protect them maybe a little bit more, because we're entering, a digital world, social media. So there's a lot more that we as parents are dealing with in that sense than what maybe our parents did growing up. So
Absolutely.
that also comes into play when, when it comes to parenting, and how much do you intervene? How much do you hover versus allowing your kids to figure it out? So there is a fine line. And I always tell parents, I'm like, if you care, you're doing a good job.
Then I care a lot.
You care. Like, you care about your children's, upbringing. And then so it is hard, but, it is important as parents to allow them to work through their own difficulties and allow them to walk through adversity, even though it's very hard, especially as a mother, to allow them to do that. It is important so that when they are grown or away, that they're able to figure it out for themselves at times.
Do you think, something I struggle with, because you brought up this, and I'm glad you said this digital world we're in. I think there are so many people that are, and women especially, that are like, okay, I'm just going to open up a business. I'm going to do it this way. And it is not what people think. And I think that they don't always know what they're getting themselves into, because we're in a world now that glamorizes the hustler. They're always, we glamorize. If you're a hustler and you're this or you're that, we're glamorizing that thing. And so one of the things that in business, someone wrote a comment one day and they said, you actually terrify me to open up a business. And in my mind, I said, well, I'm just being honest. And opening up a business is terrifying.
Yes.
And the people that are trying to make it seem as if it's not, I just don't think that they're being truthful. So are we in a place where social media is really causing kids, giving them a warped reality of becoming an entrepreneur and opening up a business? Should we be having more conversations about that? Because I think a lot of pressure is being put on kids to open up businesses.
And those are good conversations to have. And yes, I mean, just in general, I mean, social media can, bring out a different perspective than what is reality. And I think having conversations with your child, and which I'm already having with my 14-year-old, kind of navigating what is real that we see on social media. How do you know? I also encourage clients, because we're very guilty of blindly following different things in which we want to hear. So really understanding the source, where that information is coming from. So if there's, someone on social media that is, making, maybe it was easy for them to start a business and make it, to where they are today. Understanding what was their business that they started, what supports did they have to get that business in place?
Absolutely.
For like what I do, and, compared to, your businesses, like I have a lot less overhead and don't have employees. So for me, that's easier to manage than multiple facilities with multiple employees, patients, insurance, all these different things. So really, when looking at the information before you really fact check, right? Like understand, who it is that's presenting this information, what is their background, what kind of business, and what was their support systems to get to where they are today. And that really could go for anything on social media, right? Like the information that you're seeing, I really encourage clients, like when you see something about mental health or mental wellness on social media, understand who it is that is giving that information, right? Is the person qualified to be speaking on different matters? What are their recommendations? I mean, that really goes for anything, really, that you're taking off social media, like understanding that resource. And so that is so important, because you could be doing more harm to yourself than good. Even though social media can be used for such a positive platform and getting, good information out there, you just have to be careful and do your research.
Do your research.
Do your research.
Something that I really wanted to talk about is, for me personally, why does business cost you so much? Why did it feel as if, and if I look at all these different stories of all of my favorites when they're talking about whether it's Tyler Perry, whether it's Oprah, the common theme that I find with all of us is that it costs you so much, or you got to go through so much to get in business, and what it does to you emotionally, the people that you lose. And I've always wondered, and it keeps me up at night wondering that if I'm doing this great thing, I'm owning these residential assisted living facilities, I have a purpose now, I'm feeling the best I've ever felt about myself. I think I've arrived. But then it's like this pit in your stomach. I've lost this friendship. I've almost lost my husband. My children told me I thought I was the perfect mom. I thought I would get an award, because with and this is all things that really hurt, because with my mom, it was an alcoholic. She had a lot of things going on. And so I thought, okay, my kids won't feel any of that. I'm going to get the Mother of the Year award for my kids. And then I have my daughters looking at me and going, Mom, you do remember all I know is that you worked. And I was like, okay. And you ate good. You didn't eat hog maws. You didn't eat pig feet. Girl, you ate a lot of good. So, and then she went on to say, and this is where it hurt me, because she said, you do know you used to pay someone to take us trick-or-treating. And I was like, she said, because you always had to go to work. And she was like, that's just like, and whenever the kids hit you with the bro, I was like, but I'm a good mom, aren't I? And then she was like, yeah, but Mom, you were just always working. I don't have any memories with you. And wow, that was like this gut punch. And then when I talked to my other friends that are women that are in business, we all have the same stories where you have to lose so much to be a provider. And I never understood why. I thought my kids were going to stand up and be like, my mom is this, she's that. Girl, you did it. And they still found some things that now I'm in therapy for that. I was in therapy for my marriage. I'm in therapy for my kids. I'm in therapy for the trauma with my growing up. Girl, so how can you, what do you do?
Yes. And, our kids are just so good at, sometimes they do really focus on the negative things, because there isn't as many negative as there is positive. So for them, also, the context of what she was telling you this, and was there something else going on? Was she having a tough day? Was she going through something relational that
She wanted me to pay for a trip, like $30,000 somewhere. Wow. And I was like, and we wound up going. I was like, okay, I'll take you wherever you want to go.
Yeah. And after the comment of being not a great mom, I mean, but, I think and I can't really speak on it so much because I've only been in business a few months, but when you are starting a business, right, you really individually and selfishly have to build this up on your own, and you are doing it all on your own. I mean, you're doing the accounting, you're doing, designing of the buildings, and you're doing all these things in order to get this business afloat. If you think about it, if you're not running a business and you're an employee at a business, right? You show up at 9, you leave at 5. Not saying that's all jobs, but just for an example.
Absolutely.
But if you are the business owner, you have to think of so much more, because it is your neck on the line. It is your name on the line when it comes down to it at the end of the day, right? So there is a lot more responsibility that comes with that. And I think that's part of it until you pass on some of that responsibility to another owner or a partner in the business. But still, at the end of the day, it is your name on the line. So you are invested
Yes.
in making sure that everything goes right. So every bit of energy that you have is being inputted into the business
Everything.
and making sure that it grows and that it does succeed, you know.
And I think for me, and I look back because having my husband, I'm the face, so most people see me, but having him support me and do all of those things, and even
That's
with
great.
that, it really still was very hard because I'll be honest, I just was about this business and I had this mindset. And that's where that whole thing just comes to I don't care. I'm doing this.
Yes.
Even if it costs me my marriage, even if it costs me, I didn't care what it cost me because for the first time in my life, I needed something that was bigger than me. And you think that until it does cost you your marriage. And now this business don't seem so big anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was a very tough moment and it was a tough time. And I talked to so many women. I have a good friend who experienced the same thing. And, and we talk about why do we have to? And so I think, because I didn't want to lose my marriage, but I do want the success.
Right.
And so sometimes my husband is saying, look, slow down. Hey, I'm still over here. I still have needs and I still have this and I still have that, to the point to where this is probably way too much information. But now, because I have to prove to the daddy that left, that I only met one time, I got to prove something to him that, dude, your ass should have came back with that milk and you should at least have been calling and checking in on me, because I got to show you that even without you, I made it. And so for me, I now am changed because when you see this person, like he's been in the trenches with me from the beginning. So it's so hard for me. At first you think, oh, well, forget it. You do this, I'm just going to start over. And then life hits you and you're like, oh no, I'd much rather try to get through this with you than without you. And now it's crazy that I'll be looking and going, okay, and I don't know if I'm doing this wrong. Okay, we need to have sex this day. I got to make sure he's happy. I'm going to cook this day because now I'm trying to go, let me make sure, because I can just, and it's the trauma sometimes that's pushing me to want all these great things. So I got to still remember about this person. And some days I'm like, okay, do I just got to let this thing go? Or do I have to figure out how can I be a successful business owner, have all these businesses, be impactful? And I don't want to just be visible. That's why a lot of times on my videos, I don't care how I look. I want to be valuable, but I want to be valuable in my marriage too. And why can't I have it all? Or can I have it all, girl?
Well, you're doing it all. That is for sure. And I will say, you said something where you were doing all these things to prove to that dad.
I was.
But it sounds to me that you were also trying to prove something to that little girl.
Yeah.
And that you're going to make it someday, regardless of the situation that you grew up in. And you are, doing it all. And sometimes we get lost on the purpose of what we're doing because we are trying to prove something, whether it is to ourselves, not only to feel successful, maybe validated, and nothing, from anyone else, but it's just for ourselves. Yeah. And it is very hard when you're running a business and you have all these different relationships and duties and responsibilities that you are committed to doing. And sometimes when I talk to women who have a lot on their plate, a lot of type A women, right? We like to be, we want to be
I'm
the
A
one.
plus, A. Oh.
Well, we're going to take some of those pluses away because I think, as type A women, which are typically the ones who run businesses, we want to still be in control of all the aspects. And you say, well, should I just let it go? Maybe delegate and let some of it go to other people who you trust, to things that maybe you don't need to.
That's the D that I need. Delegation, not the other D. Because I want to keep my marriage. So I'm just got to learn to we need the other D, y'all. But it is, even for now, even me, I mean, I can do all these different things and have all these businesses, but to know what I'm going through in my marriage is hard. And coming back from pain and hurt and trying so hard to, damn it, I got to here, but I had to lose this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to do that. And there's so
Yeah.
many women. I wish there was a way that you don't have to lose it all
Right.
or lose these people, even
Right.
friendships. I have some friendships where, like, dang, why does success feel so lonely?
Mm-hmm.
Why is everybody judging me?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was Tanya, poor Tanya from the hood or
Yeah.
the ghetto, and he's in, everybody loves you when you
Yeah.
don't have. And the minute you make this shift and you start getting these businesses and you're thinking, okay, y'all,
Yeah.
I did it. And
Yeah.
they're throwing tomatoes at you, or
Yeah.
they're writing mean comments, or now they want
Yes.
to talk about what you did all these years ago.
Right.
And you're like, wait, I'm not her.
Yeah.
I'm really,
Yeah.
it's so baffling to me,
Mm-hmm.
to the hurt that you get along the way,
Yes.
the judgment and all of this, because I
Yes.
want to be successful.
Right.
I want to prove to the little girl.
Yeah.
I want to prove to the little girl that went through all those things that you matter, you're somebody, even if you don't have the
Mhm.
degree,
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't have any of those things, that I
Yeah.
still matter.
Yes.
And to the people that left me, and I want to prove to my mom that I wish she had gotten the help that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I prove to her too, and I think about her
Mhm.
often. And I want to
Mhm.
show my grandma,
Yeah.
like, Grandma, thank you for taking care of me, girl. I don't know how you
Yeah.
did it,
Yeah.
but you did it
Yeah.
with little means. So I think it's very important that's why I tell you that having this conversation with you today,
Mhm.
I was so happy, because I was like, oh, I get to sit across from somebody and we can talk about all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's really important, because women are struggling.
Mhm.
We are struggling. That
Yes.
even though you're getting the success, your people are finally seeing you, but there's a
Yeah.
piece of you that has to die
Mhm.
in order, and the people that have to die,
Mhm.
because you got to lose all these people along the
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
That is painful.
Mhm.
And does it happen with everybody, or is it just me? I always wonder that.
I believe it does. And, you look back on those friendships and you look at, the purpose of that relationship at that time, whether it was a friendship or a colleague or whoever it was in that point of life, they were there for a purpose. They served a purpose. And, then it was time to move on to a different phase of life. And sometimes you will find, personally, I've experienced this as well. There are friendships that last a lifetime, and there's friendships, in that phase of life, they serve that purpose. And sometimes there is a reason why that friendship wasn't to continue on. Were those people there to help you get to that next phase and build this business, right? When you look back at those relationships, were they healthy for where you were at in that point of life? Nothing negative to those, friendships, right? Like you go through phases, maybe it comes back around. There's only so much you can control. And when it comes to the negative feedback that you experience as a business owner, I mean, you've been doing it a lot longer, right? And I think it is when you put yourself out there. I remember someone telling me, like, just be prepared. You are going to become a target, right? Because you are taking a stance and you're putting yourself out there, and be ready for any type of criticism that may come your way, even though you are doing a good deed and you are helping thousands,
still
of
will be
different
there.
people. And so, just how are you going to be prepared in order to take that type of criticism? But you do lose some folks along the way, and everyone goes through that in life, and it is very hard, and it could be very personal. It could be very painful, but you have time to reflect on it as you go on in life, and maybe they do come back around. You don't know.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, so that makes me feel better, because I feel that there is like this shedding that has to happen.
Mhm.
So thank you for saying that, because
Yeah.
those friendships expire. Girl, I don't want to, I ain't her no more. I'm her.
Yeah.
And so I think having to not feel guilty about the
Mhm.
evolution of self,
Mhm.
the evolution of Tanya and these things that I'm
Yeah.
doing, and that, girl, we can't sit on the phone and talk about our trauma all the time. Or,
Mhm.
girl, I don't know what you and your man got going on, but
Yeah.
we in therapy and we trying to love on each other.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think that understanding that those relationships do expire.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the expiration of those relationships is very painful because you got to lose these people, but it's necessary for me to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you hit on something, because I think about some of the friendships that I had before. They wouldn't be able to be my friend in this season of my life. And that's okay. And that's what I'm hearing you say, that instead of me crying about it and feeling sad about it, I have to learn to accept that this is a part of the process, and this is a part of the business, and this is a part of, now I have to meet other friends that can meet me at this state of my life. Not the friend that I don't need to call 3 a.m. and be like, girl, you got the bat, let's go.
Yes.
We got to let her go.
You might need that.
I might need you. So I might go, I'll keep the light on for you. Because every now and then you need the friend with the bat.
Yeah.
So I'm now calling the friends to say, put the bat down, Tanya.
Yes.
We're not going to use that bat. So I think that's very, very profound to understand that it's so tough, because I was talking to one of my girlfriends who's really good in business, and she's so secluded. Does the seclusion have to come with business? Like, now it's almost like she becomes very private, because she's like, Tanya, you got to remember, when you're in business, it's almost like you're looking over, you got to become a different person.
Sure.
And you take a lot of hits. So I kind of see what you said, and I understand, because I'm thinking I'm being reflective of my friendships.
Yeah.
And I look at my friendships that we get on the phone all the time. My girlfriend, she literally will have wine and be like, girl, I'm getting ready to wine and wine. And she's talking to me, and she's telling me all about her day. And although we're in different businesses, we go through the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't care what business it is.
Yeah.
We all have the same stories that are in business. So I was looking at also too, before we get to we're gonna wrap up in a little bit, but I do want to tell people to follow you, because I was on your page, and there is something about your voice that's so soothing and so calming, and it's Her Mindset Tampa. Go to Her Mindset Tampa. Y'all better follow her. I want everybody to follow you. Follow her, because I was thinking when I saw that you were in Chicago, Southwest. I don't know a whole lot about Chicago except what they show.
Yes.
But even for you, what type of women do you help? Is it the business women, or is it all phases? Or tell me, who should reach out to you?
Yes. Anyone and everyone over the age of 18. As of right now, I've been finding, any woman who feels ready to just open and see, is this something that I need? It could be anything from, like we were talking about before, feeling stuck. I'm at a phase of life where I do need to make a change, or I do want to open this business, or I do want to start a family, but you're feeling hesitant and you just need that little support or nudge to make that next step. Sometimes just unloading and making a plan and how to do that. I've worked with quite a few college students as they're getting ready for graduation. What are these next steps going to look for me? And just, as therapists, I think some people are under the idea that therapists are there to tell us what to do. But a therapist is there really just to help you navigate different conversations, be a sounding board that's unbiased, not the local bartender that you go to and they're giving you advice based on a tip, or Chat GPT who tells you advice because of what you want to hear.
Yes.
We're really there just to help have these hard conversations, navigate different scenarios, and help you come to a conclusion on your own. And I'm also working with women in different phases of life, just after having their first child, versus women who are transitioning into their 40s and going through all those fun changes. And then, also women who are becoming adult caregivers and trying to navigate that phase of life of how we find the right resources for our aging parents. So right now this is everybody's invited. So
I think everyone benefits from therapy. If I could look back, if I were just starting, I'm talking to whoever's getting ready to start a business, and if you are married, I think that you should go to therapy, because your marriage will definitely need some guidance. And I think that I wish, that my husband and I had gone to therapy, because you don't know what this business is going to do. But I
Right.
knew that because it's a business of caring for people and I'm dealing with people,
Yes.
I knew that it was going to be a lot on me. And I
Yes.
just kept saying, oh, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. I was ready for that,
Yes.
but not the other pieces. So if you are contemplating, in my honest opinion, opening up a business, I think you should get a therapist. I think even if you're single, I think having someone to give you the tools to use, that's all it is. Like,
Yeah.
I remember going to therapy and thinking, okay, this person, I'm getting ready to be fixed, because I can sit in rooms now and go, I have a therapist. But no, it's making me understand, and it's connecting dots for my bad behavior or my behavior in general. That's what therapy does. It's going to connect the dots, because sometimes I would do certain things and it would say, oh, because of that. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Why does that matter to me? Why do I? And then I started realizing that some of it too was just even with my mom. I was like, wow. Sometimes you try so hard to run from a person till you run into them, and then you become them.
Yeah.
And I think certain phases of my life that I was my mom, and I didn't even realize it or recognize it until I got into therapy. And I remember the therapist giving me a piece of paper one day telling me to, at different times, first 6 months, she told me, she said, write down what was the most beautiful things about your mom. And then she said later on, maybe 6 months later, she told me to write down the most beautiful things about your husband. And this stuck with me and it's never left. They were the exact same words. And I was like, this is so creepy, scary. I was like, what? And so it was a moment I'll never forget. She said, you're looking for the same type of love for your mom and your husband. I wrote the exact words, and that was scary. And that's when I knew the power of therapy, because now I'm going, whoa, 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 wow.
Yeah.
And it was like, and the expectation was the same, what I wanted for my mom. And some of the things that I didn't get, it was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I ain't married my mama, did I?
Yeah.
But I was so confused.
Yeah.
And it helped me understand. And what therapy does too, it helps you give other people grace. Because now I'm giving people grace that I need to be punching in the face.
Yes.
I ain't gonna punch you. I'm gonna give you a little grace. Because now I know you got some stuff going on that ain't even about this argument that you're trying to have with me.
Yeah.
So that is where I love those parts of therapy.
Yeah.
For some people, it's just a buzzword. Oh, I go to therapy. No. I go to a place that helps me understand why or how I'm broken and how I can still exist with all these broken pieces without bleeding on everybody.
Yeah.
Or without cutting anyone. So I think for me, that's what the biggest impact therapy has done for me and my evolution and my business and my friendships. Because once you go to therapy, everybody around you, they become benefactors of that therapy. My kids, before I would have walked in my daughter's house, I'm texting her this morning, you don't have to be on edge around me, girl. I don't care about your junkie house or whatever. Yeah. But before I would have walked in her house, pick that up. Don't do this, do that, So now let me just have some grace. Yeah. Let me give grace. And that's been the word that I think I use a lot these days. Yeah. It's grace.
I love that. And I love that you've completely sold therapy to everyone. but that is great advice if you are considering opening a business. And not that I'm a business expert by any means, but I think it's important, like you said, that whether it's a therapist, a counselor, that you can at least talk with them to talk about the different scenarios that you go through and how you're going to manage and cope with different situations.
Yes.
Mentally, how are you going to walk into different aspects of opening up this business, but also to have like a business coach or mentor that's going to help you walk through the different steps and give you good sound advice on different things that, come about. And I love that you have your friend who is also a business owner that you bounce ideas and vent with. I have a good group of girlfriends in which they've all, started their own businesses, and that I've been very inspired by, and like their success and their advice that they give me. So I think having someone like that as well is very important. So
So if you're gonna and listen to what we're trying to say, y'all, is you got to talk to people who are doing what you're doing. I think sometimes people that are giving you advice aren't doing what you're doing. So they can't tell you. If your girlfriend's doing a 9 to 5, not that you can't talk to her about other things, but she's not going to be able to relate to, it's 3 a.m. I got to get up because this thing is going on wrong with my business. So I think it's very important for everyone to have, I like to call it good counsel. You got to have good counsel. And that good counsel should be representative of what you have going on. Like my girlfriends that have businesses and have been in business a lot longer than I have, when I call them with something, they're not shocked. They're like, oh, girl, just do that. Oh, fire her, let her go. No, so they're able to give me advice from them doing it and living it. So don't just be out here, y'all, talking to anybody. Because people that ain't doing the business, and you know what's so funny? Those are the people that usually can tell you the most. If they don't have a business, anybody that don't have a business will tell you how to run a business. They be like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Meanwhile, they clocking in somewhere. You're like, what? This doesn't. So I've had to learn that some people giving me the advice, I just be like, but that is, if you want to know how to run a business, go talk to somebody that don't have one, because they have all of the things. And you're just like, that doesn't work. That doesn't, so I've learned now to be very careful with whom I seek counsel from. I think that's very, very important. So,
and you take that with a grain of salt, that they mean well, that they're trying to support you in their own way. But then, like you said, you know who to seek counsel from in a different matter. So
absolutely. Yes. I think, do we have any? Yeah. What were those, girl? Oh.
There were a couple others, but if you wanted to stick with that one.
Yeah, I like that one.
Oh, one of the most important things that I think that I had to unlearn to grow was that everybody can't go. Everybody can't go. When you get set on, when I first started out, I was so happy. I was like, ooh, I'm going to change this person's life, that person's life. I'm going to give this person a job, that person a job. I know my friend that's been struggling, that's been telling me that these companies are treating her bad. I can't wait to hire her. Oh, and I realized very quickly that is not how it goes. And I had to fire her, and I lost a lot of relationships because I just thought that I had to unlearn that that's not the same. Loving her as my friend does not mean that I got to love her in business, or we're going to be able to have this same relationship in business. And that was so tough for me because that mindset of taking care of everybody and making sure, so I had to unlearn that. And I had to unlearn, this is one of the biggest things. I thought when I open this business and when I start helping all these people, now people will see me. They will see me, and that they won't judge me, and they'll see this goodness. They'll forgive me they'll understand this mouth that I have and this way that I am. And I thought that I would make that people, now they get to see the real Tanya because I got these businesses, I'm helping people, I'm doing all these great things in the world. I had no idea that wouldn't change how people still saw me. If they don't want to see you, they ain't going to see you. And they're going to, if they are hell-bent on disliking you, they going to still dislike you. You just going to be successful. And now they still disliking successful Tanya. I was like, wait, I thought they would dislike mouthy Tanya, poor Tanya. But no, this is Tanya dressed up. This is Tanya with this nice fancy wig on. Now you got to like me because I look the part. I'm living this life. I had no idea that they would still find a reason to not like me. And then I realized, as long as I like me. And that's why now, and that's another thing, that money, those things, that ain't going to make you happy. So it's something that people say, but what really makes me happy is when I walk into one of my facilities and my residents are smiling. When my residents are telling me, I feed off of that energy. So I had to unlearn a lot of things, but this money ain't gonna make you happy. These things, that it is such an inside job that, baby, I take it seriously. So I really do look in the mirror sometimes and I'm just start dancing for no reason. I'm very careful with the conversations that I had to say to myself. Like, I'm less critical of myself these days, and I give
That's good.
myself grace and room. So yeah, I'm unlearning a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it don't even matter about the money or any of that,
Yeah.
as long as I show up as my authentic self
Yeah.
every single day.
Yes.
That's what I had to do.
Yeah. And I love that. And I agree with you. When you are an endeavor of opening up in business, it does unveil a lot about yourself. And because you are putting yourself in a vulnerable situation,
Mhm.
and you do have to put yourself in situations that make you feel uncomfortable, which helps you
Mm.
grow in the end. But it's a lot to unlearn. One of those things for me was to let go. Like I had to unlearn being in control and to let
I'm
go.
still doing that. I'm working
Right.
on it.
Yeah. Or let more go or
Yes.
easily let go because I felt like I had to be that way in order to make this happen. And so even though I don't have any employees like you do and been in that situation where you had to let an employee go, I think still letting some of that control go or making those hard decisions in order to have a thriving business is important. And so I do love that you touched on that point. Absolutely. And, to your point of also getting that criticism, no matter what phase,
Don't matter.
whether, what person you're in, whoever wants to see you is going to see you and is going to support you and uplift you. And that's who you ultimately want in your corner, but you don't need their validation to have your validation.
Absolutely.
And finding what you do has purpose and that you're serving the greater good and supporting your family is ultimately probably what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And there has been some surveys which have been really interesting when people have been asked about, how do you feel in your career? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like you're contributing something greater than yourself? And a lot of people are finding, no, actually, I need something that has more purpose.
Yes.
And if you're doing something that you find is purposeful and you can lay your head on the pillow at the end of the day, like something like I have contributed something positive to society, then you are feeling fulfilled and purposeful. So,
I love it.
and we all need every job.
We absolutely
society go
do.
around, but you have found your niche, and I love what you do for people.
Thank you. I really love it as well. And I've learned too, and I think I'll wrap this up, but what I found very interesting is the same people that will tell you to let go and that you're so controlling that when you do let go, now they're looking crazy. Because they needed that control more than you needed to be in control.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like telling my daughter, figure it out.
Yeah.
Hey, I still need the rent money, baby. No.
Yeah.
This is letting go, mama.
Yeah.
This is so I find it very interesting that when you let go, and they all have been telling you this for years, because most business women and I talk to, we all have the same thing. Well, you want to be in control. You're this. Okay. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in control.
Yeah.
And see what happens, because those people, they need your control.
Yeah.
Because without it, it's chaotic. So that's why it's always, but it's always evolving.
Yes.
But I find that to be interesting. But I have definitely let go. Yeah. I've let go of so much. Yeah. And now I look sometimes and I giggle because I'm like, now if I was in control, that shit wouldn't be happening. So,
or even just learning to delegate. Maybe not completely let go, but delegate in a manner where you still can have some reach in it, but someone else is able to take it off your plate a little bit.
Absolutely. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise.
I am very, I hope to continue these conversations with you at a later date. I think that it's been very informative in helping me understand that I don't have as much work to do as I thought I did, and that some of these thoughts that I have were actually okay, and that it is going to be okay. So I want everyone to follow you at Her Mindset Tampa. Yes. Her Mindset Tampa. Follow Meagan Mitchell, guys, y'all. And thank you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Thank
you.